So some of the differences between the RTRs and the kit are that the Element Enduro kit comes with these nicer shocks. The shock. Hey guys, welcome back to Revolution XRC and welcome to the final part of this Element Enduro kit build series. Final part meaning the final part of the manual as far as the kit manual goes. By no means is it the final part of this build, but the final part of the build to the manual directions. And in this part we will be tackling these shocks, and you will need bag 9. So some of the differences between the RTRs and the kit are that the Element Enduro kit comes with these nicer shocks. The shock bodies are the same, but the Enduro kit comes with these blue aluminum shock pieces that replace the plastic shock pieces in the RTRs. For gate 1 of the shock build, you'll basically need the entire contents of bag 9. Now Element to supply the shock oil, which is roughly around 30 weight, but I prefer to use a 40 weight for this particular build, so I'm using the factory team 40 weight oil, and I also use Nolene SF3 grease or green slime for the O-rings on the shocks, and I'll put a link to these in the description below as well. I don't want to over tighten this. Once again, I forgot some additional parts that you'll need. You'll need these rod ends that are remaining from the previous steps, and you'll need these plastic pivot balls and these pivot standoffs. Alright, now before pushing the piston through the shock body, I always like to kind of just stick this threaded area into the grease, or the knurling grease, and push it through, just so I can prevent any damage to the O-rings. Go. One. Now the final part of gate 1 for these shocks, you need to put on the rod ends, and for that you should get a tool like this. The Protec RC shock pliers definitely want to do that so you don't scratch up the shock shafts. And that completes step gate 1 of the shock build, and we're ready to move on to gate 2, where we start filling it up with the shock oil. For gate 2, you'll need the 4 shocks that you've put together so far and your shock oil. Remember to cycle your shocks to get that air out. I like to figure out how much shock oil I want to put in the shocks by pushing the shaft all the way up because I use low pressure setups. I'll just put it here on the stand, let it sit for a while. Move on to the next one. Alright, I'm going to let the shock oil sit for a bit while the air bubbles get released, and we'll come back when that's done. Now that the shocks have sat for a while, we'll go ahead and put the caps on. And I like to put the caps on while these shocks are compressed or almost fully compressed for the low pressure setup. And that completes gate 2 of these shocks. For gate 3 of the shocks, you'll need the following. One thing I also need to mention that there are 2 sizes of O-rings. Make sure you use the correct size. The smaller one goes into the shock cap and this bigger one goes into this shock adjuster ring. And the directions want you to give about 3 millimeters of space between the top of this. There we go. And that completes gate 3, the awesome shocks of the Element Enduro kit. For gate 4, you'll need the remaining pieces, the M3x14s, the M3x16s, 4 washers, 4 pivot balls, and 4 shock standoffs. We'll start with the top of the front shocks, and for that you'll need 1 shock, an M3x16, a washer, and a standoff. Now the standoffs look, actually that's a pivot ball. The standoffs look like that. They're bigger than the pivot balls. Let's give you a closer look. So screw, washer, standoff, and into the shock mount. Actually, before I move ahead, now would be a good time to put the pivot ball in. Oops. Gotta remember that this shock has to go through, because we're dealing with behind the axle steering. And that completes gate 4 and the shock portion of this part of the series. These are some of the best shocks for crawlers out there. Very, very smooth. You can see why I mounted them, and that's how they're mounted in the stock configuration. You can also mount this lower part to the link area right here, but that's when you start customizing. So it'll give you an idea of where things go. This is where things go in the front. And we're gonna move on to the last step of this part of the series and complete the stock build. Alright, so for the last step in this part of the series, the body posts, you'll need bag 10. For this step, you'll need the following pieces. Now, depending on whether what body you're going to use, you're either going to use this in the rear, these tall body posts, or you're going to just use 4 of these normal regular body posts. You'll need the 4 body pins if you decide to use body pins, and you'll need these screws to secure the body post to the shock hoops. And there we have it. We've completed the body post portion of this build, and that also means we've completed the stock portion of this build. So we've completed building up this Element Enduro Builder's Kit to the manual specs, and this portion of the build is complete. I can't wait to start getting into the customization and modifications and upgrades for this build, which will be part of the future video for this series. So I hope you enjoyed the building of this Element Enduro Builder's Kit to the stock specs so far. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified of my future videos of where I'm going to take this Element Enduro Builder's Kit. Thanks for watching.